So like Bitcoin, for example, is a little bit different than Ethereum as it's more decentralized and doesn't really have figureheads that represent Bitcoin, as opposed to Ethereum does have certain figureheads.
And welcome into crushthestreet.com. I'm Kenneth Amaduri, and I'm really excited today because I got a first-time guest on the line. We're going to talk digital currencies today. And this is someone who's a Bitcoin evangelist. He's an entrepreneur. He's an investor. And he really understands this space. And we're going to get into some of the details on Bitcoin and maybe some of the other digital currencies today. His name is Ameer Rosic, and he's a speaker, well-renowned in the Bitcoin ecosystem. His website is blockgeeks.com, and he has a very popular YouTube channel that you can find under his name. Without any further ado, Ameer, thanks for joining me.
Hey, thanks for having me on the show, Kenneth.
Ameer, I want to, by way of introduction, getting to know you, I want to get your thoughts on Bitcoin at the moment and maybe how you were introduced to it and what attracted you to get into this space.
So it happened a couple of years ago. I heard about Bitcoin maybe 4 years ago, but I never really got into it. And then about 2 years ago, a good friend of mine called me up, and some of his friends who had a bunch of Bitcoin and blockchain companies in Toronto needed help with marketing, which is my background. And through me helping them with their branding and marketing, I was kind of exposed to the underlying layers of the technology. And at the exact same time, my good friend Dmitry Buterin, which his son is Vitalik Buterin, he just launched Ethereum. And so here we are, Ethereum launching about roughly 2.5 years ago. And then that kind of sold me. I'm like, wow, this is beyond financials. This is beyond just crypto. The underlying fundamental technology that is blockchain is going to transform society. And ever since that, I've been full-time in the space. And yeah.
Well, that's really exciting. I want to get your current thoughts on Bitcoin and,
sure,
where you think it's headed. Obviously, we've seen a lot of excitement surrounding it. We're back in the $1,800 range. Last I checked a few minutes ago. And but I'm wondering, do you think Bitcoin will remain king? You mentioned Ethereum here. Even in an environment where it continues to grow, do you see maybe some of these other ones even taking it over potentially?
Well, one just has to look at the evolution of technology. One just has to look at even the internet. Good example would be MySpace and Facebook. So like Bitcoin, for example, is a little bit different than Ethereum as it's more decentralized and doesn't really have figureheads that represent Bitcoin, as opposed to Ethereum does have certain figureheads. At any given time in the future can be another cryptocurrency, maybe a brand new one that we never hear of. But that's the evolution. But the bottom line is tokenization, cryptocurrency, and blockchain technology is here to stay.
Okay, and then what about the price of Bitcoin and just what's happening? What is your sentiment around it at the moment with all the excitement, enthusiasm? I have people emailing me left and right wanting to get into Bitcoin and,
Sure.
to a large degree frustrated with gold and silver.
Sure.
So what are your thoughts?
I think Bitcoin has a huge upside. I don't see why it can't go to 10,000 US. There are some issues, though, with it. Obviously, there's political issues right now. People talk about scaling debate, whether it's this technology versus that technology. For example, SegWit versus the Bitcoin Unlimited protocol. For everybody listening out there, right now there's an issue of Bitcoin, which the issue is it's bogged down. Transactions are expensive. Sometimes people are waiting literally days. I think they're backed up by like 200 transactions. I don't know, some ridiculous amount. And there's two different proposals. One is called SegWit. The other one's called Bitcoin Unlimited. Both have a different method of scaling the technology of the platform that is Bitcoin. However, obviously, human interest lies in there, ego lies in there, and the issue right now is very political. Unless they figure out how to solve this from a political aspect, whether they fork Bitcoin, and a fork means Bitcoin will split. There'll be two Bitcoins, Bitcoin that we know of and then Bitcoin Unlimited. Same thing that happened with Ethereum. Ethereum that we know right now, ETH, and then Ethereum Classic, so two different chains. They need to figure it out that fast. And as soon as they figure out that, I think sky's the limit when it comes to that stored value within Bitcoin.
And do you have any opinions on SegWit, and do you believe that Bitcoin Unlimited would be detrimental to Bitcoin? I know it worked out to an extent with Ethereum, but what about something to Bitcoin is Bitcoin's extent? Maybe Ethereum, not as many people knew about it. It kind of happened in an environment
Well, I'm just going to interject. Ethereum plans to have many hard forks in the future. That's the difference between Ethereum and Bitcoin. For example, Ethereum already had a fork before even this fork with Ethereum Classic. And even when they're going to proof of stake, so a brand new type of protocol away from proof of work, they're going to be having another hard fork. So the community...
So is that a problem, though?
No, not at all. It's actually accepted.
Okay. But does it dilute the purchasing power of what people have? Is that a problem for people who want to store their wealth long term? I understand its utility.
That's the issue. People have to understand that Ethereum is not a Bitcoin and Bitcoin's not Ethereum, and Ethereum is not Litecoin, Litecoin is not Ethereum. Each one has a certain purpose and utility. How I see it, I see Bitcoin as a store of value. I don't see it for payments. I don't see it for you paying somebody to do something or you trying to send micropayments. As we can see right now, the transaction fees are expensive. I see it as digital gold, at least how that is today. It's the oldest immutable ledger there is, the first immutable ledger there is. So if they can activate SegWit and eventually activate Lightning without having a hard fork, I think that keeps the faith within Bitcoin. I've looked into SegWit. I think it's a very simple solution to implement. So I think I would go that route as opposed to forking it, but I'm not opposed to it either. You know, it's technology. Technology is supposed to evolve. You can't stop people from evolving technology. So do what you have to do to evolve the tech. And if it does fork, hypothetically speaking, yeah, the price will drop. Maybe it'll drop down to, I don't know, let's say $600, maybe even low as $200, which the price would then skyrocket afterwards, because now each different chain has what they want, their own type of protocol, and they can start scaling as fast as they want to based on what they wanted originally. So when I tell people, when people ask me about investing, my number one rule for investing is invest what you can lose, period. If you can't emotionally lose that money, don't even put $1 in. That's the first thing. Number two, really understand what you're investing in. You're not investing in currency, you're investing in technology. There's a big difference. And number three, which maybe we can touch on a little bit later, understanding the securities and keeping your coins safe. That's something a lot of people don't talk about. I know a lot of people that keep a lot of money on exchanges, and that's, I don't advise that for anybody. Yeah,
we'll definitely get into that here in a bit. Well, that's very interesting. You know, the different uses, your thoughts on Bitcoin. I'm torn as to what to think regarding the hard fork. I think it's important that that they continue to evolve, but I think we're going to have a big issue with people losing faith in it, and really, to an extent, that's all it has. And if we have a situation where it hard forks and there's confusion, there's two Bitcoins, it seems like it would be there would be a massive loss of faith in Bitcoin. And really, I wouldn't say take it down, but I think that would be some backward steps in terms of the adoption that we would see going forward here.
Depends. Like, the problem with Bitcoin, I want to say a problem is people always put too much emphasis on the technology in this space. It never have to do with the technology. It has to do with human psychology and understanding how human nature is. That's one thing we have to focus on. For some reason, a lot of people don't talk about that. And you're mentioning a fork. Well, we can just look at Ethereum. It's forked. We can look at all these different, like, for example, Litecoin is literally a clone of Bitcoin, right? It has value. People use it for certain utility. I think this space, what people need to start concentrating on, don't concentrate on cryptos as money. It's not money. It's a utility. What is the utility of that coin? And for example, besides Bitcoin, who are the developers in that team? Who are the leaders of that team? Who are the devs in Ethereum? Who's running Ethereum? Who's the leader of Ethereum? Who's the leader of Litecoin? Who's running Monero? Who's running, say, Ripple? So people have to start looking at this as no different than a startup. When I invest in startups, I don't look at, what's the tech of the startup? I look at who's running the startup, what is their roadmap, do they have what it takes, etc. So that's the biggest issue right now. People actually view this as a stock, which I don't blame them. It's kind of confusing at the beginning, and just view this as like a currency, for example, like Forex trading. But it's not. It's completely not.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, I think we have the luxury to view it in our safe jurisdictions, with relative stability. But a lot of people are getting into these digital currencies because of problems within their own countries. Obviously, Venezuela, Argentina is big. Problems in Europe, and these people, maybe they don't understand it, as much, but they see it as a way to all get out of their current situation, and it's very practical, and to them it's a store of money. But we're here in the U.S. with,
like, for example, Bitcoin is a store of value. I would not use Bitcoin to pay people at this current moment right now.
Too expensive?
too expensive, and it's a store of value. People are using it as digital gold. I would use Litecoin. I would use Monero, depending on where you're geographically located. You can use Ethereum once they launch proof of stake, which I think they said it's going to be like above 1,000 transactions per second, or maybe even 10,000. I forget the exact number. But yeah, like Bitcoin right now, it's not really, and it originally wasn't. The original game plan wasn't to utilize it as micropayments and instant payments. There's other ones like Litecoin. Litecoin now has Segwit. There's a real life working example for Segwit that Bitcoin can adopt. Just launched, when did Segwit activate? Last week or 2 weeks ago, roughly. Yeah, instant transactions, it's quick. The transaction fees are very low, so that's a utility that you can utilize for micropayments. So each coin, each fundamental technology that supports, whether it's a token or a coin, you have to figure out what is the major problem they're solving for. Because even though people are speculating on the value, that speculation is only there due to the fact that that coin must produce a beneficial solution for a problem in the real world. If that coin is just for the sheer fact of speculating, that coin will not have a life. It's going to crash.
So to that, just feeding off of what you just said there, what are the coins out there, in your opinion, that actually have some substance to them beyond just speculation?
Monero, Zcash, Ethereum, Litecoin. Those are at the top of my mind right now.
Well, I saw the title of one of your...
more. I would say like Singular DTV2 for royalty rights, but that's a while away. And Golem maybe, but they're a couple of years away before you have that type of network effect for memory processing. So
not Dash at this point?
You know what? I love their marketing. I love what they're doing. I don't hate on them at all. I think they're doing a great job. I'm just going to give them more time. That's it. I just want to see what they're made of, and just going to sit back and see their evolution of them.
Yeah, good point. Well, one of the titles of your videos that caught my attention is why Bitcoin could be more important than the internet. And what was your reasoning for that, and where did you go with that?
Well, the internet, even though it's been, probably one of the greatest inventions ever for human civilization, at the moment, it's still very centralized and controlled. For example, Hong Kong, Turkey, we've seen in real time. For example, Turkey, during the elections, they have kill switches for the internet. Turn off the internet. That's it. Majority of countries have that. What I meant about that video, why Bitcoin's more important than the internet, is for the first time ever in human existence, we have a technological platform not controlled by anybody. There's no CEO, CMO, CTO, CFO. You can't sue anybody. You can't blame anybody. You can't, get the government after that guy for, regulatory issues. It is a decentralized, distributed technology that is all around the world, that anybody with an internet connection and even like a phone or even a computer can have access to this network, which is remarkable, absolutely remarkable. So we're creating this, as Nassim Taleb talks about, this anti-fragile system. So what we're living right now today, as a great book to read is Black Swan and Anti-Fragile, what we're living in today is a very fragile ecosystem. It's like a window or a mirror. Like you touch it, it can collapse. And we're so interconnected through the banking systems. And people hate on the banking systems. I don't hate on the systems. It is what it is. And you have to work around it and work with them to create a better place in the world. And what Bitcoin does is kind of an equalizer. So it has no prejudice. It doesn't matter what skin color you are. It doesn't matter what religion you are. It doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter how rich you are, how poor you are. All you need is an internet connection, and you have access to it. And that's why people in Venezuela are using it.
Yeah. No, good point. One thing I wanted to bring up here and educate people on is, what is a smart contract? And I know Ethereum, that's big in Ethereum, and we don't really get too technical here on the site, Ameer.
Don't worry,
so
I'm not a developer, so we're good.
Okay, but I want to. This is big. Ethereum's big, and I want people to understand, what the use is for. I'm getting questions about it, and I know you've done some education on it. So please, kind of give us the details on it.
In layman's term, a smart contract, people confuse it with, they think it's like this interesting, intricate, complicated coding system online, which it is, don't get me wrong, but you should just call it a contract. There's nothing smart about it, just a contract. It's no different than simple logics that we have online, if this, then that logic. For example, a smart contract we can use for escrow, where it's coded on the Ethereum platform, where if I produce a certain action online. My escrow is activated to send money to like 3 people, and as soon as that action is executed, it evokes or it turns on another action. I consider a domino series. So I push one domino, it activates the next one, so forth and so forth. That's what a smart contract is. It eliminates a lot of middleman utilities or middleman services. For example, a clear example can be going to a lawyer to notarize a title for a house, right? So there's people working on the solution right now. So if I want to buy a house, I go there, I get the title, I got to go to a lawyer, the lawyer has to confirm and notarize it. What people are doing right now, they're uploading the notarizations and the actual title to a blockchain to verify it. So if I'm coming around and I want to buy a house and I buy vis-a-vis the blockchain, I don't need a lawyer. Or for example, let's say you need to do a bank transfer, but you need witnesses. So then you have to go to a lawyer once again to sign off a witness or just a random person. You can have a smart contract executed on that, but also with cryptocurrency in there. So think of any transaction that requires middlemen to be in the middle, to be part of that, whether it's a witness, whether it's a legal action, the person has to sign something. That's what smart contracts do. They replace those middlemen intermediaries.
Wow. It is amazing, and we just used an attorney for a transaction we did as an escrow person, and what you're explaining to me could have been done, I suppose, with Ethereum in that sense.
Eventually, yeah.
So that's really cool, and it makes its use case surrounding that. And as you already said, you don't believe Ethereum is a store of value per se, although I think those that are holding it at the moment are pretty happy seeing the gains that have been had, seeing what is happening with Ethereum, right?
I'm not saying it's not a store of value. I'm just saying it's completely different than Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. It's like comparing an apple to a banana. You can't compare them. They're 2 different technologies.
Amir, I want to get your thoughts on what's going on then with the government, and they're playing. They got to be real careful to crack down on it, because the more they do, the more people repel into it, and Bitcoin and digital currencies grow even more, and we're seeing that happen largely around the world in other countries. We've already mentioned Venezuela. But I want to bring up this tax issue, because people are transacting with Bitcoin or some of these other ones because maybe they're not going to use Bitcoin for microtransactions. But if they're going in and out of these currencies, there's gains and losses to be had. Number one, how are people going to really keep track of that? And what are the implications for what the government would try to do, in your opinion?
Depending on where you live. For example, in Canada, Bitcoin is considered an asset. Ethereum's still in a gray area. They don't have a true technical legal definition yet. So they're actually trying to rewrite a certain regulations and securities laws when it applies to tokens and crypto. And it'll depend, like certain tokens will be different. They won't be considered securities or crypto. They might be just a utility in your business. That being said, it really does depend on the amount. It does depend on what currency you're doing, and it does depend on how you're legally established yourself. Are you cashing out as income tax? Are you cashing out as capital gains tax if it's an asset? Are you cashing out in dividends through your business? So there's many different vehicles for you to declare your cryptocurrencies, and it depends on what geographical location. Like a lot of these Bitcoin companies, they're located in Singapore. For example, Ethereum is located in Switzerland. And a lot of people are located in Hong Kong as well, or Macau in China. To answer your question, I would say it really does depend. Now, taxes for an individual, let's say just North America, unless you're in Delaware or in Las Vegas, like you said, it's very difficult. For example, we'll pull up some numbers. Say you buy right now, I don't know, 5 Bitcoins. What's it at right now? $1,800. So let's say we'll round out to 2. We'll say $10,000 worth of Bitcoin. And then tracking it's difficult. And then let's say you double up. Now you have 20,000. So the arbitrage you made is $10,000. Now, what do you do with that? You directly cash it out, or do you start using it to other cryptocurrency? And that's the issue at hand. It's easy for you to cash out the crypto to your bank, depending on where you live. A lot of banks will accept it, some won't. But it's your call then how you have yourself set up. I always tell people, don't cheat your taxes, pay your taxes, but have a system set up. I always tell people this: protect yourself legally as much as possible.
Of course.
Right? That's it, right? So do everything in the law to protect yourself legally as much as possible. and whatever that is based on the region that you live, that's what you should do. I would always consult businesses or other people who are in that space locally where you are. Talk to them to see how that's set up. Like I said, in Canada, if you're an individual without a business, and if you are, because capital gains it's above 30, yeah. So if you're claiming anything like north of $30,000 in capital gains from, say, not just any crypto, like Bitcoin, you would have to pay 50% of that. So if it's, say, $10,000 you made, you have to pay 50% of $5,000. So then you'd be paying $2,500 tax on that.
Is that fair in your opinion? And considering a lot of people want it to be money, and you shouldn't necessarily pay
tax money,
right? Yeah, that's the problem.
Sure. I always tell people, why do you need to cash out in the first place?
You know what? I've bought digital currencies and I haven't traded it. It's been long. For me, it's just something I believe in. I'm going to hold and
I don't trade at all.
Yeah.
My system is the easiest system anyone can follow. I started buying in 2.5 years ago. Every single month, I put in the same amount and anywhere between 4 cryptos and 4 or 5 tokens, and that's it. That's my strategy, nothing else.
Wow. Well, that's really exciting, and obviously it's working out well for you. Okay, so I'd like to just, you kind of gave a price target on Bitcoin. You said, I don't see why it couldn't be $10,000 as it continues to adopt. Any thoughts on where you think Ethereum and also Litecoin? I'm very interested in Litecoin as well. Where you think these are headed?
Ethereum has a good chance this year of going to 200 just based on their announcements of proof of stake, because next year's a big test for Ethereum. Starting maybe around Christmas, they're slowly going to start rolling out proof of stake away from proof of work. And it's going to be a slow implementation from testnet to mainnet. Then they're going to have like a hybrid variation, testnet and mainnet together. And then eventually, maybe 1 year later, proof of stake, full version of proof of stake with sharding and staking will be online. That's going to be fascinating. And that's going to, next year, the prices are going to be interesting. Let me put it that way. But this year, I wouldn't be surprised if Ethereum is at 200 before Christmas. That wouldn't shock me. Litecoin, they just activated SegWit. And as long as Bitcoin is having issues with their political issues, not technological issues, but political issues, all other cryptos and tokens will rise. And I think Litecoin has an amazing utility. The utility is micropayments. It's fast now since it has SegWit. It's very low transaction fees. It has a person that represents it. It has a good development team. It's now on Coinbase, one of the largest exchange and the easiest exchange to use, at least in North America, just for Litecoin, Ethereum, Bitcoin. And I think it has a good, really strong future if it continues on this trajectory.
So do you see it as a problem that Bitcoin is very decentralized and doesn't have a strong leader, for instance?
No, but that's why it's a store of value compared to others.
Yeah, that's interesting. All right, well, Ameer, I want to get your thoughts. You brought up security and the importance of security, and I want to touch on that here before we end this interview. What is the importance of protecting your Bitcoins, your digital currencies, keeping them off these vulnerable exchanges, and how should people go about doing that?
Well, it's simple. If you keep any of your cryptos or tokens online, the chances of you losing them is very high. And there's a couple of reasons why you can lose them. Number one, you just forget your passwords, or you don't back it up. You don't have your mnemonic, your seed phrases, whether it's 12 words or 24 words or how many words it is. You just don't do it. Many don't, and they don't back it up. You're like, oh, I forgot my password. Well, too bad. You lost your private keys with that phrase. That's it. You're never getting your coins back. Or number two, for example, it's happened a bunch of times. That exchange gets hacked. You may not know it gets hacked. For example, all these DDoS attacks on Kraken and Polo for the last 2 weeks. They're not telling me what's going on behind scenes. I'm telling you, there's something going behind on the scenes over there. So I always tell people, exchanges are an exchange, exactly how it sounds. You're supposed to be in and out. Unless you're a trader and you're taking the risk and you're running it on like Bittrex or Polo, but I don't recommend people go into trading unless you want to be a full-time trader. But if you're just an individual that want to buy, for example, Bitcoin, Monero, Ether, Litecoin, Dash, even whatever, right? Go in an exchange such as Kraken or GDAX or whatever you want to do. Get the wire transfer there or whatever method you want to use. Get the money in, buy your crypto, and leave the exchange. And I always recommend people, maybe you want to play around with some, keep it on a hot wallet. So a hot wallet would be an online wallet, whether it's on a website or whether it's a desktop version or whether it's on your phone. So it's actually, it's online. I would keep like a small portion on there if you want to play around with it, send people some or receive some, which is cool. It's like me saying I'm walking around with $100 in my pocket. I don't care if I lose it. I'm going to walk around $10,000 in my pocket.
Sure.
And the rest offline.
Of course.
A cold wallet, a hard wallet, like Ledger. I use Ledger. I like it. It's simple. You can give it to a kid, and a kid can understand how to use it.
Yeah.
And it can hold multiple currencies and tokens.
Yeah, that's what I use. All right, Ameer. Well, hey, I appreciate you coming on the line and sharing your thoughts with us, sharing your knowledge, actually. If people want to learn more about what you do and the services you're providing, let us know about what's going on in your world.
The easiest way to check is go to BlockGeeks. So what BlockGeeks is we train all the developers in the world. So my goal, my ambition is to train 10,000 developers a year. So if you're interested in training in Solidity or Hyperledger or even Bitcoin, so we're coming out a course soon for Bitcoin, for JavaScript on top of Bitcoin, we are planning to have full online training agnostically for geography. Doesn't matter where you live. So that's our main thing that we do at BlockGeeks.
All right, Ameer. Hey, thanks for coming on the line with me today. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Kenneth.